Hi folks, I think it's about time we got this Triumph cylinder head back together, so let's start to rebuild it. Right, well, I've not done anything on the Triumph for quite a while now, and the main reason being obviously is because I've had other things to do with the family, and also the Reliant Regal was taking precedence, so now that's stripped down away for a sandblast in the chassis on that. I thought I'd spend that time just to get this head back together so that we can start making some serious progress on the Triumph Acclaim and get the car running again. Right, so what I've got to do now, just got to finish lapping in the last few valves, and that basically involves the old grinding paste there, as you probably see. One of these suction cup tools which basically sticks on top of the valves, sort of like that. Never very good, these things. Stick that on there like that, put the valve in the hole, put some grinding paste around the tip of the valve, and basically rub the valve around and round and round so that it grinds both even surfaces together so that they create a perfect seal. Well, that's the idea behind it anyway. In reality, you're forever having to re-stick this back on the valves and stopping and starting because the paste works its way out and you have to keep reapplying the paste, so it takes quite a bit of time manually to do it with this tool. I think you can buy one that fits on a drill attachment, but I've never used one of them. I've always stuck to this old-fashioned way of doing it. And so anyway, what I'm going to do now is put you on a time-lapse camera. You don't want to really see me grind every single valve in. I've done two lots of valves at the moment, so I've only got the two more to do, and then we're going to start rebuilding the head and putting that back together. So I'll see you in a minute. Right, okay then, that's the valves grounding. Let me just show you what that looks like after I've finished them. Right, well, I don't know whether you can see or not there, but you can see where the valve surface meets the actual valve. You've got this angle there, and that angle should marry up all the way around with the angle of the actual valve seat without any marks on it. Now, if you actually look closely, you can see there's a nice faint grey line which is all the way around the valve seats, which means that the grinding paste has done its job and there's no gaps or divots or digs where air will get past and cause problems with the compression. And these are all been done, as you can probably see there now. We've got all them sort of lined up now, and they're all lapped into each individual valve. So I'm just going to actually rebuild the head now, and again, a bit boring for you. And I may have to stop and start this because I'm going out for lunch again in probably about an hour's time. So I'll see you at the end of this. See you later. Bye for now. In the top end gasket set, you normally get everything needed to strip down or take your cylinder head off, including the head gasket and including a rocker cover gasket and other seals and ancillary seals, like the shaft has an O-ring on for the distributor maybe, and also inlet and manifold exhaust, that sort of thing. But you also get a bag of these as well. Let me just take them out and show you. As you can see, we've got different type of O-rings and stuff in there, but you also get something called the valve stem oil seals. Now, the valve stem oil seals are one of the symptoms, or the main symptom really, of a car with valve stem oil seal problems is that initially, first thing in the morning, it will smoke, blue smoke, a puff of blue smoke in the morning when you start the car up, and then it will probably run okay. That's possibly, on an old car, definitely on an old vintage car, can possibly be the valve stem oil seals, and there's one of them for each valve. And if I just show you one, I don't know whether you can see that, it's basically a little cap a little rubber cap which basically seals around the top of the valve as it comes through from the bottom of the cylinder head on the shaft through this bush or valve stem, and then it sits on top of the valve stem oil seals and creates a seal so that none of the oil that's floating about in here can sneak down the side of the actual valve stem and get into the engine that way. So these are the valve stem oil seals. Now, depending on your vehicle, the inlet and exhaust are normally two different sizes, and what you may find as well, I don't know if it's the case in this one, I haven't checked, but sometimes inlet and exhaust both have different size of valve stem oil seals, so it's always wise to check in the manual whether or not the inlet and exhaust have different size stems. So that's one thing to look out for. Right, and also before we put these valve stem oil seals on, you have to make sure that you put the base of the springs on. That's the little plate there which the spring actually sits on, so it doesn't damage the aluminium part of the head. So these will go on first, so let me just pop them on, and again they just simply place over the top of the actual valve stems like this. There we go, and then it's just a simple case of just popping the valve stem on the oil seal. And these ones, as I said, have got little retaining springs at the bottom there, and the spring at the top there just ensures that you get a nice tight seal around your valve stem. So let me just whack these on. Here we go, that's the final one on. So that there is the valve stem oil seals and the base of the springs now put on. Now what we need to do is to get the valves back in the head, and this is where, as I say, we number them, as you remember, on this sheet of hardboard there, and the front of the engine, which is this side. I know that because I marked it. So all the valves go back in the relative order that way around. Now again, this is the sort of thing where you have to do it one at a time, and you need the valve spring compressor tool for this. So I'll just show you one, and what I will say is when you do reassemble this, use plenty of oil on the valve stems, the actual valve stems when putting the valves in, because when you initially start this up from cold, none of this has got oil in it, so you've got metal on metal, so make sure you lube these up very well when you're like reassembling. So where's my oil? We also need the valve spring compressor tool, and also the little collets which hold the valve springs and valves together, so I've also got them there as well. Right, so first things first, let's get the head in the right position for reassembly that way. So I'm going to use an inlet valve first, which is the bigger one on the right side of the engine, and it's the bottom one. So I'm just going to lube up the shaft of the valve itself like that, and push it in the hole. And what I tend to do is just push it in and out a little few times, just to make sure that that valve stem oil seal is lubricated, and that feels lovely. So that's that in there now. Right, okay, and what we need now, let me turn it over this way actually, try and get it so that you can see what I'm doing. So now we've got to get one of the spring collections. Now, as you remember, this has got dual springs on, as you can see, that one inside the other. It's normally sort of higher performance engines that have that, and that stops valve bounce apparently. So the Mini Coopers used to have that as well. So there we go. So we're just going to plonk that on there like that. And as you can see, for us to try and compress that spring would be an impossibility, and that's where you need the valve spring compressor, which is this tool here. And this being an old one, I've borrowed off of someone because I couldn't find my one. It's a little bit tight, so you need to get that over there like that. Get that in the middle of the valve. Compress it like that, and then you get the two little collets. Tip them out like that. Now it also helps to put a little bit of oil on just around the top there, because these little collets will then stick to the top of the valve a lot easier than just falling out if it was just dry. There we go. So they're in place now. And then hopefully, when you let go of the tension on the spring, gently if you can, and out she comes again, and there we go. Take it off. Just make sure that the collets are in, and one way to do that is just to give it a little seat with a hammer and make sure they don't fly out. And as you can see there, everything seems to have seated fine, and the respective valve is back in the hole. So lucky enough, this vehicle has only got 8 valves, that's 2 per piston. Some vehicles have 4 valves per cylinder, and some vehicles also have 5 valves per cylinder. And can you imagine doing this 5 times just on one piston and then having to repeat it again? So we're lucky in this case. The only thing we've got, which is not so really fiddly, is getting these little collets on. So that's the most important part of the job done, on getting the valve springs back in and the little collets. And I'm just going to zoom along and do this. You don't need to see that, and I'll see you at the end of this. See you in a minute. Right, okay folks, I've assembled the rocker assembly now. Everything's been oiled up and cleaned, and I've even blown out the waterways again. As you can remember, the waterways were scaled up, and they've got a lot more rubbish out of there with the sort of the 90 psi airline again, so that's fine. And I'm at the stage now where I've got to torque up the 10 or the 12 rocker bolts now for the rocker assembly. And to do that, I've got to torque them up to 16 foot-pounds, as it says in the manual here, or 22 newton meters. But my small torque wrench is in inch-pounds, not foot-pounds. So I've had to convert that online. It works out to 16 foot-pounds, works out at 192 inch-pounds. So that's what I've got to torque these up to now. And again, it requires doing them sort of diagonally all the way along. There's 12 bolts to do, so I'm just going to zip along now and quickly torque these up. Okay then, that's that. And again, whilst I've got the head off, it's a lot easier to do it here, and that is set all the valves for the inlet and exhaust clearances. So anyway, I'm going to zip through and do all that now, and you'll see me when I've got the head all back together. So let me get on with this now, and I'll see you at the end of this. Bye.